This video is only part of an unpaid, unbiased, in-depth review from an average rider's perspective, so check out the rest in the link below at thegoodride.com. If this video helps, please consider subscribing and buying through our links, or even better, become a member on YouTube or Patreon. You'll get exclusive access to video review shorts as we test gear, along with a lot of other perks. So thanks for watching, and I hope this review helps. Welcome to The Good Ride. I'm James Beastie, and I am all that is average. And this is Davey Boy, and he is just special.
That's what my mom always said.
It's great to have him here. That was not sarcastic. And this is the Capita Navigator. This is the 164, but I've ridden, I think, the 58 and the 61. Davey rode the 64. Next to it is the Megadeth. You would think I'd put the black Snowboard of Death next to it because it'd probably be more comparable price point wise, but it's not because this is lighter and poppier like this is, so we put this in here. The next to that is the Kazoo, just for the hell of it, but these are more of their tapered directional free ride boards. So I wanted to throw these in for the occasional comparison. I rode this with Union Atlas, Burton Kendos, Burton Tourist boots on some driftboard and Union Rover excursions, along with Union Chargers. And then Davey.
Yeah, I rode the Navigator with my Burton Ion boots and my Union Force bindings.
And I've gotten this in all kinds of conditions, everything from pretty good powder to a little bit of powder with some hard snow underneath, that bumpy, bouncy, kind of nasty snow that doesn't do well with a lot of boards. And then got this in some groomers and some uneven snow as well. I've ridden this a bunch of times over the last 3 years, I believe.
Yeah, this is my first season getting on this board. I got it out in some pretty good powder. I would say somewhere around a foot, maybe a little more. And I also got it out in some pristine groomers.
And to give you a short summary, the Capita Navigator is one of Capita's most tapered directional boards. It still has that Capita personality, but if you want to get any more tapered and directional, you have to reduce your camber profile and go into the powder world and the spring break line. That's the next stop from here. This is definitely more tapered and directional than the Megadeth and the black Snowboard of Death, and way more tapered and directional in feel to the Kazoo. It still has that mountain freestyle twin-like personality for a tapered directional board that Capita offers. It always allows you that freestyle, mountain freestyle feel to it. It's not that set back, it's not that directional, it's not super floaty, but it definitely is more floaty than most of the boards in Capita's line. And it's very poppy, it's very playful, you can butter, and I think other than it being pretty chattery and bucky for me in some conditions, you can have a pretty good time with this.
Yeah, I really like this board. If you're looking for a directional ride and you don't ride switch very much, I thought this was almost a Swiss Army knife, very versatile, well-rounded board. I thought it handled powder pretty good. I thought it carved pretty good. It had good pop. There wasn't really any major red flags with this.
And let's talk sizing. So this 164 is too much for me. The 158, I felt like not enough construction for my 180 to 190 pounds, different times I rode this over the years. The 161 felt right. The 158 felt right for my boot size. The 161 felt right for my weight. And in this particular situation, I wanted something better for my weight than I did my boot size. Usually it's the other way around, but these boards are so easy to turn and control that it was okay to go a little wider, go out of my boot size's comfort to get something a little better for my weight.
Yeah, I'm 6'4", 235 pounds. I thought this 164 was a great size. Even hearing Beastie say it just earlier, I was like, what, this is a 164? I thought it felt more like a 58 or a 60 underfoot. I really liked it. Honestly, I might even be down to get this thing in like a 170 if they made it.
It'd be great if they made a 167, because that would be your
probably. Exactly.
So when it comes to shape, camber, and on-snow feel, this is definitely the most tapered and directional of all the Capita boards, except for the spring break powder, but that's another world. So we'll just talk about nothing that has spring break in the name. Then you kind of go to the Megadeth and the Kazoo. Those are the other tapered boards. But like all Capita rides, it really doesn't neglect that freestyle feel. Yeah, it's tapered directional. It favors a little more back foot weight completing the turn, so the tail isn't washy, but overall it's pretty good. Then you get to the Capita, Megadeth, and Black Snowboard of Death. These only have a little bit of taper and feel pretty much like directional non-tapered boards. The tail never washes whether you drive off the front foot, center weighted, or back foot. With the Kazoo, you feel that taper. It's a little more centered, and it just doesn't feel that easy off the back foot. Sometimes it felt washy for me when I drove hard off the front foot. I think it like center weighted to more back foot on groomers. So the Camber's evolved and changed a little bit over the years. It used to be kind of like flat to camber and then flat to early rise. These days it's camber between the feet with early rise in the tip and tail, and I like that.
Dude, I loved this camber profile. I thought it was really good. It was like the perfect little hybrid rocker camber that I would want. Like it carved really well. It stayed locked in, not too locked in. And it drove down the line. It allowed all the turning you would want from a camber, but then that nose floated really well. Wasn't very sinkable. And overall, I think they're doing a great job with this little rocker out the nose. All right, people. So when it comes to the flex, see if I can do this without knocking out old Beastie over here. I should say old Beastie.
Just it's
Sir Beastie.
It's not that far from the truth.
So right here, that's pretty, like, I would say that's like a 6 out of 10. Not too stiff, but you can see it has a decent little.
Dude, this thing springs.
Yeah, this thing springs. My hands are getting sweaty just doing this. I don't want to mess this up and hit anybody. But yeah, so there's that. The nose, a little more playful, definitely. You need that extra give if you want to do some big swooping nose butters or something like that. This tail's extra firm. Firm is part of the board, which I really liked because it allowed you to spring out of ollies and engage on a turn.
And this thing pops. That was the big thing about this. It is really poppy. It out-pops its camber profile. Mm-hmm. I would say that.
Yeah.
And it's easy to butter. I had no problem, nose butters, tail butters, any kind of butter. And I'm not like Mr. Butter either, but it was very easy.
Oh, Mr. Buttersworth.
This mister got his butter's worth.
Yeah. I thought the tail was easy to butter. I suck at buttering, and I was able to pull it back and hold it.
And one thing about this, too, is this flex personality for me, I got this in a wide variety of conditions, all kinds of, hard, micro bumpy snow, kind of mid snow, and hard micro bumpy, it didn't do that well. Just messy snow. Didn't do very well either. It really bucked and bounced me around and made me feel uncomfortable. It constantly kept losing my edge in the line. It would buck right out. Not a very quiet board. It's all about pop in good conditions. And the two extremes of the uneven snow spectrum, hard micro bumpy and soft and messy, didn't do very well with this board. And when it comes to speed and base glide, Capita's done some cool shit the last few years. I'd say the last 3 or 4 years, their bases just kept getting faster. Last 10 years, really. Nowadays, their fastest bases are up there with some of the best, like on their Spring Break Pow or the Megadeth here. They've got glide to them, and this doesn't have that kind of glide. It's not up there with the Megadeth or a lot of the high-end boards, but this is at a lower price point, and it has very good glide for this price point, kept its speed rather well, and Capita's really been impressing me with their base glide. Sometimes I don't like all that structure. This one doesn't have as much because it's a powder board, but overall, base glide, very good. Speed, this is no bomber. This is soft and poppy. Not soft, but medium-ish flexing and poppy. But I could point it pretty well when I needed to, let's say to get up the backside of the cone and you have to do that straight line through compression. It did a good job there. So good enough. And let's talk edge hold. Thought it had good grip. Nothing exceptional, but pretty good, competent grip. And I was cool with that. I felt like the Megadeth and the Kazoo gripped a little better, but overall pretty good.
Yeah, I didn't get it in hard enough snow to really notice the grip one way or another. It wasn't catchy though, so that's really good.
And when it comes to turn initiation, turning and carving, the overall turning experience, this initiated a turn really fast and continued to turn pretty fast. It's a pretty balanced side cut, but it felt kind of almost in the middle once you get it on edge and start like railing a turn. And I think it could work with people who want to make all kinds of turning radiuses, and that's cool. The spring out of the turn's pretty good too. It wasn't amazing, but definitely competent, fun groomer carver, and I had a pretty good time with it. Nothing exceptional, but nothing terrible either. I think some people that want like a real stiff torsional flex and really want to drive out their turns, want a lot of camber, you want to go for like the Megadeth, or you want to get something else with a lot more camber, like, like our favorite, the Indoor Survival. That thing has a lot of camber, and even though it's a soft board, no, not super soft, but a medium-ish flexing board, that was a much better turning experience just because of the extra camber.
Yeah. I agree with that. I love the Indoor Survival. That thing is special. The Navigator I thought was fun. Like I said earlier, it's kind of like just right in the middle. It does good enough where it warrants a quiver killer type of board.
And speaking of powder, with my 161, I could get 2.875 inches back from center of board at a 22.75 inch stance width. And that's not that far back on board for a freeride board. That's more of like a very good all mountain board and a not so good tapered directional traditional freeride board like it is. But that goes along with Capita's mantra. They're kind of more freestyle park to mountain freestyle. And they're all mountain boards definitely have a freestyle-ish personality. That's neither good nor bad. It's just what it is. So if you want tapered, directional, and set back, you probably don't want the Navigator. But I thought it had decent directional float and better than every other board in Capita's line, except for the spring break powder displacement, snowcraft, all that spring break stuff. Those things are magical. Those are super floaters. That's in another world. But in comparison to the Megadeth and the Kazoo, even though the Kazoo's tapered and directional, it's a very centered ride. This is a little more centered than the Navigator, but more set back than the Kazoo. The Navigator's the most set back, but it still has that Capita centered mountain freestyle personality, land switch, ride more steeper terrain, get air. That's what this board likes to do best. It wasn't a great low angle powder board. I wouldn't get it if you ride places like Mount Bachelor where you're mainly riding low angle powder. This isn't going to shine there, but it'll shine in steeper conditions for those who like more of a mountain freestyle oriented ride.
Yeah, I think for Mount Bachelor, this board definitely maxes out at like getting close to 2 feet of snow. It's not gonna hold up in the low angle terrain that we have. But the day that I did get it out with the foot-ish of snow that we had, I thought it floated pretty well. And like for what I was saying, it's not a powder board. This isn't gonna knock your socks off, but for how well I thought it turned, I also thought it floated really well too. And like for somebody that's just looking for one board to do it all, I would say the powder float is good enough to warrant this being a quiver killer type board. Definitely not powder specific.
Dude, yeah, if you come from the Kazoo, the Megadeth, the Mercury, or the Mega Mercury, you're gonna love this.
I mean, I came off the Cardiff Goat and I went to this, and I thought this had a lot better float than the Goat even.
Whoa, the 62 Goat?
Yeah.
Did you set it all the way back?
Yeah.
Whoa, trip.
Yeah.
And the Goat's like a big mountain centered power ride too.
Yeah, it's just a little more centered, a little more down the line than this.
A lot more big mountain.
A lot more aggressive. Yeah.
And overall, I think this is a good board. I had a good time with it. For me, its performance in uneven terrain made it harder for me to recommend for those all conditions riders, but hearing Davey's perspective lightened that up for me a little bit. And I think it's a very poppy, fun, dynamic, energetic ride, and if that's what you're into, then this could be a really good fit for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've said it probably 5 or 10 times in this review, but this is a great one quiver type of board if you're looking for something that doesn't do anything exceptionally well but does a lot of stuff pretty well. then this is a great option. It's not going to be the floatiest, it's not going to be the turniest or the hardest carver, but it does all well. And if you like directional rides and you're not too into riding switch, I think this is a really good option.
Yeah, and it doesn't go full on tapered directional either. So if you want to flirt with all mountain and free ride, you want something kind of almost in between those two worlds, this could work for you.